We're here. Episode 43 with my very good friend, Beth Blakey. She is the Executive Director and Chief Operating Officer of Cancer Hope Network. Beth, welcome to Homage.
Thank you so much, Darren. I really appreciate it.
So Beth is unique. Beth and I haven't really known each other for a very long time, probably about, I would say, a year and a half, maybe a little more than a year. So Beth reached out. Beth was in the process of kind of getting into running Cancer Hope Network.
Mm-hmm.
And we had met just through a warm intro, or how did we meet? Did you like?
It was a Google search. I found you on Google, which means you're doing a good job.
Dan and the digital team, you guys are doing a bang up job. Look at this. So we didn't even meet through a warm intro. So basically, we met through a warm lead that came in organically through Google, and Beth and I really hit it off. From the first conversation that we were having, it was very, very, I could tell very early on for your passion for the organization, your passion for life, what you do and how you do it. And I'm going to let you speak on it in a little bit. And I want you to be able to tell the story of kind of the organization, what it's about, what you guys are doing. But when I think of Beth Blakey and just having the, in the limited window that I've been able to get to know you, every conversation that we've had, you lead with your heart and you lead with a passion and an energy that, especially coming from me, that I very rarely see, because there have been times in conversations that we've had in the last year and a half where it hasn't always been easy with what you've undertaken and what you've been able to accomplish. That's another thing. I've never seen a human being come close to like what you have accomplished in the last year and a half with the organization. It's immense. So kudos to you, but tell the audience a little bit about yourself, and why you have a passion for this organization, and kind of like a little bit of the background story, because I think it's unique and I think it'll be really cool for the audience to hear who you are and why you're doing this, because I can tell you, everybody who's out there listening, there's a lot of people who would not have undertaken this and undertaken it in a way that Beth has, to be able to see it through some not so easy things. So Beth, thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. The floor is yours. Go ahead. Tell us a little bit about Beth Blakey and how she kind of got going with Cancer Hope Network.
Sure. So I've been with Cancer Hope Network since 2019. Professionally, I've been in the nonprofit space for about 24 years. I started my career in the corporate side and really found that I am more mission driven. I felt a strong calling to focus my career on helping people. What could I do to make a difference? How could I dedicate my life to making sure that I'm leaving the word a better place?
Was that from like early on? Was that something that like when you were working in corporate America? Like I always felt like I love telling these stories and kind of like painting the picture, because I've had people from every walk of life, folks coming on here in the nonprofit world, in the corporate world, entrepreneurs, not entrepreneurs. Did you find when you were in corporate that you had this draw that was calling you somewhere else, or did you know like early on when you were a kid, like this is what you wanted to do?
So a little bit of both. When I was younger, I was always kind of the person that was looking to help. I felt best about myself when I was helping others. But I didn't really think about that in terms of a career. I honestly thought I was going to end up being a lawyer, something along that line. I thought that the goal in life was to be successful, and that being successful meant making a lot of money. mean, that's, kind of the American dream, right? Like, go to college. If you're fortunate enough to go to college, have access to that, go to college, come out, get a career making a lot of money.
Mhm.
And I honestly didn't know that nonprofit was a career path. It wasn't something that was ever presented to me as such. I thought that a nonprofit organization was strictly volunteer. So I didn't know that it was something that I could make a career doing. So I followed the natural path, or the path that I thought was the natural path. And I went to college. I majored in English. I had a really great opportunity to have an internship in the public relations space when I was in college, and I pursued that once I got out. I had a great job at an international agency. But yeah, when I was working there, I was like, it doesn't feel right. It didn't feel like, for the number of hours I was working, right? I was working really intense hours. And, I had clients in other parts of the world that I was responsible for. And so, taking calls in the middle of the night to accommodate time zone shifts and whatnot. And at the end of the day, I had very little time that was my time. So all of this time that I was giving up to the company, it was affecting a company's bottom line. And that's okay. Like, that's fine. But to me, I was like, if I'm going to spend my life and have, a couple of hours that is my time to be with my family and the people that I love, the time that I'm not with my family and the people that I love, I want to make sure that that time is spent doing something meaningful for others. I can't see making that kind of sacrifice for my whole life, professionally,
Yeah.
um, to affect a bottom line at the end of the day, to line the pockets of
Other people.
the other people, right? Like, I wanted to make a difference.
Right.
And so I met my husband when I was working at that agency in New York City, and he actually worked in the nonprofit space and introduced me to the nonprofit world. And I had an opportunity to leave the company that I was at for a job making about half of what I was making, to take that risk. But I was young. I was, in my early 20s, and didn't have responsibilities the way, we do as we're getting older, as older adults. So I said,
Yeah.
if I'm going to make a change, now's the time to do it. And he encouraged me, and I did, and it was the best decision I ever made. I was never happier, or felt more fulfilled than when I would go to work and know what I'm doing matters. Where I could see the fruits of my labor in the faces of the people that the organizations I was working with were helping. So it was a conscious decision that was made after entering the workforce, but it was a pull that I think I always felt. Um, so
That, what you just said about affecting outcome and changes, like that parallel between whether it's going from corporate to the nonprofit world or corporate to the entrepreneurial world, it was
yeah,
a similar type of thing where you could connect the dots between, like, I'll never forget it. When I started DSM, I
yep,
knew I wanted to coach youth football, and I knew I would like even something like that. And I didn't have kids yet. And now it's come full circle where I've gotten to coach my son. This will be like year 6 of football and year 3 of lacrosse. But to be able to affect like a tangible change, whether it's in your kid or whether it's in,
yep,
the faces of the people that you're helping, like you're affecting real tangible change that you can see. And that's yeah, that's something that it's a different pull from corporate to entrepreneurial, but it's kind of the same thing in terms of like
absolutely.
there's something more than money.
Yeah.
There's something
Yeah.
more than money. And if you have that like burning desire in you, um, it has the potential to have a real impact. When you talk about when you made that move and that shift into the nonprofit, like how did it take you? Like what was the journey, the beginning of that journey from both, because you're transitioning too in your like personal life with regards
Yeah.
to getting married and having your kids and like
Mhm.
I know that was a journey for me, and I'm still obviously in that journey. And just before we were on the call, you know, like having your daughter drive
Yeah.
to, you know, drive to the shores or the first,
Yep.
whatever, like how did that journey take you from like the personal side? How did it run parallel paths with your journey to Cancer Hope? And then what is it about Cancer Hope Network that really allows Beth to be the best Beth that she can? Because like, what is it about the organization that is helping you put in the long hours when you're making, you know, like at the time, half the money? Like that has to be a big shock to the system when I was the same way. You go
Yep.
to high school, you go to college, go to corporate America, and like, let's make some
Mhm.
money.
Right.
The people around me, you have to have a lot of support when you do make those types of transitions. So what is it as your like personal journey and your parallel path of like your journey through the nonprofit world, and then take us through like what that kind of looks like in the form of Cancer Hope and why that's so important to you?
Sure. So my path into the nonprofit world, like I said, my husband kind of introduced me to the nonprofit world. I have a passion for arts and culture. So what that allowed me to do, my first job in the nonprofit world was at Lincoln Center for the Performing Arts. And so I was able to immerse myself in, into the arts and culture. I was able to kind of put a different lens on my passion for the arts and culture, because I was able to see not just the arts and culture as something that I enjoyed, but it was something that could heal a wounded world. So I was there during 9/11, and you know,
Wow.
seeing how the arts could transform people, bring people together, heal people who were hurting, and hurting terribly. Um, when I was there, Betsy Sills, the opera singer, she was actually the head of Lincoln Center, and she was this just incredible force of nature and just this amazing woman who really drove that home for us as a team when we came back to work after, taking that time off just post 9/11 to kind of figure out what the world looked like and what safety looked like. And, so I was able to take something that I loved personally, and find a way to support it in a time when the world needed it most and when I personally needed it most. From there, you know, my husband and I got engaged when I was working there. And while I loved being there, and I still passionately love Lincoln Center, being in the city was very hard after 9/11, and I needed a change. So I actually took the skills that I learned at my job at Lincoln Center and left for a job at my alma mater, which is Rutgers University, and worked for the Rutgers University Foundation, where I was able to spend some time giving back to the university that gave me so much, through my education. I am a huge fan of Rutgers. I loved going there. I got so much out of my experience. So I was able to take some time to give back to, to the university that gave me my start, that gave me the opportunity, to do what I love. So I spent some time doing that. But I missed the arts. So I went back into another arts organization in New Jersey for a while. And then when my daughter was born, this career path gave me a chance to run my own business. So for 13 years, I ran my own nonprofit consulting business and grant writing. And so what that afforded me was an opportunity to be the kind of mother that I wanted to be. For some people, being a working parent full time is the right decision. For others, being a full time stay at home parent is the right decision. For me, I needed a hybrid. And this career path gave that to me, and I was able to choose to work with clients who were doing work in areas that mattered to me at that point in my life. So, having young children, working for organizations that were doing incredible work in education, early childhood education, helping children whose parents were living in homeless shelters, making sure that they had, access to safe childcare while their parents were getting back on their feet, that sort of thing.
Mhm.
And all the while navigating, being a mom, being a wife, being a daughter. And during that time when I was running my business, my mom was diagnosed with lung cancer. And I was navigating all of that, and I was very isolated when my mom received her diagnosis. My mom is my best friend. And, when she received that diagnosis, my daughter was less than a year old. And I didn't know how to cope. Like I wanted to be there for my mom. I wanted to be, my mom is extraordinary. My mom has been there for me in every way imaginable my entire life. So I wanted to be there for her. I wanted to take care of her. Um, but that took a toll on me emotionally, mentally, and physically, like, figuring out how to change those roles, right? Like you go from the care receiver to the caregiver.
Right.
And at that point, my friends, they were all young moms, right? And they were focusing on their young families. None of their parents had gone through, at that point in time, none of their parents had gone through cancer. So they couldn't relate to what I was dealing with. So I just kind of dealt with it. And I can't say that I did so in the healthiest way. I internalized a lot of it and let that stress kind of eat at me, and it affected my health. But it was what it was. I'm very lucky, that my mom had great care, and, she went through the experience. She had, her surgery, and ultimately she got well, and life went on. In the various ways that it does in a survivorship world.
Yeah.
Uh, I continued to run my business, and then um, just I want a couple of years before I joined Cancer Hope Network, my mom received another diagnosis. So my kids, by this point, my kids were in elementary school, and she received a second diagnosis of endometrial and uterine cancer. And at the same time, my father was having some heart trouble, and my husband was having some medical issues. So I had, at one point, I had all three of the people I loved most in the hospital at the same time. And again, I have an amazing network of friends and family who I love very dearly, but none of them could say, I get it and really get it. So, I again went through it, feeling very isolated and very alone. But this time when my mom was in the hospital, having her surgery, no matter what your faith is, whoever it is you pray to, for me, I was raised Christian, so I'm sitting in the hospital and I'm saying my prayers, and I'm saying, like, if if my mom makes it, I will do something good. I will dedicate my life to making a difference for people who are going through cancer. This is her second time, like, please give her another chance. And, I said those prayers, I sent them up, over and over and over again. And she did. She pulled through, and, she is now a two-time cancer survivor. And, we went through the process, and, I supported her, and, I was part of her caregiver team. And life went on. And I kind of, as we tend to, I put those bargains that I made during my prayers, in the rearview mirror, and kept going on with life. I'm, busy with my children and my business, my husband, my family, doing the things that I'm doing. And all of a sudden, I started seeing jobs pop into my inbox, because as a business owner, right, you always have to keep all your doors open, because you never know, it's feast or famine.
Yep.
So I had a resume on Indeed, and this job kept showing up in my inbox, and it was a development officer job with Cancer Hope Network. And I deleted it. And then it would show up again, and I would delete it again, and it'd show up again, and I delete it again. Finally, the fourth time, I was like, okay, this is ridiculous. So I opened it, and it was like the lights went on. I read about Cancer Hope Network, what this organization is, and what it means for people. So Cancer Hope Network provides one-on-one peer mentorship support to people going through cancer. So what we do is we train people who are either cancer survivors or caregivers to a loved one with cancer to provide this one-on-one support. And most of that support happens over the phone, though we do have, teleconference or in-person meetings if, geographically it works out, or, in some cases where we have partnerships with hospitals, that those in-person meetings can be facilitated through the hospital. But it was like, I didn't need to go through that alone. And I can put my time and talents into making sure that nobody has to feel the way I felt. Like this is the aha moment. This is what you've been training for your whole life. Like this is that moment. And I've been here ever since. I started in a fundraising role, and at the end of 2022, beginning of 2023, I became the executive director. So that's my path.
I mean, we've had multiple conversations over the last few years. There are parts of what you told everybody in the audience that I didn't even know. And I think part of why I'm so in awe of like how you've taken on this challenge and how you've transformed it and transformed the organization in the process, because, we have mutual friends. Shout out to you, Mikey G. But when you look at, from the first time I met Beth, what you just heard, that's the sincerity, that is the passion, that's the energy. It was always about the challenge for you. Like, I remember you telling me the first time when we had spoken about Cancer Hope Network, I'm like, oh my gosh, this woman's going to like literally transform the organization. Like, it's crazy but when you have that, and again, I love like the moment of, I kept deleting it and it kept coming back. That's divine intervention. Like, there's something to be said for that happening. When you channel, what's the best part about, other than the tangible results that you get to see? And maybe that's what it is. But for you with Cancer Hope Network, what's the thing that you most love? What is the one thing about, because I know that there's days that you're super busy and it's, it's probably like everybody else in the world, things are not easy. What is the one defining thing for you that you absolutely love every day about Cancer Hope Network and what you get to see?
It's the stories. It's the stories of the people who are coming to us for help, the support seekers, and equally the stories of those people who are taking something as, traumatic as a cancer experience and saying, I am going to take this experience and I am going to help somebody else. I am going to use my experience to make sure that somebody else doesn't feel alone. It's that sense of you're not alone. There's connection. And I was here during the pandemic. I was working for Cancer Hope Network, and it was interesting to see, like, during the pandemic, how people responded to isolation, right? And how scary that was. And for me, I realized, like, as isolated as I felt during my mom's journey, I wasn't my mom, right? Like, I wasn't the person, going through that experience, with cancer. And for all of us during the pandemic, it was like, we're now all getting a sense of what it looks like and feels like to be somebody who is going through a cancer experience to some degree.
Yep.
Obviously it's not an equal, not an equal comparison, but that isolation, when you're going through cancer, when you're in treatment, depending on the type of treatment, depending on the type of cancer, like you can't be around other people, right? Like you're literally putting your life at risk, and your immune system is compromised, and we got a small taste of what that feels like. So to see people kind of change their thought processes around how we care for one another, how we can come together to support each other, how, what empathy can look like in a different way. Like, no, I can't empathize. I have not had cancer myself, but I can empathize in some small way to the isolation you're feeling. And I can put my energy into helping to find ways to make that isolation piece a little bit less.
Easier. Huh. For those that don't know the organization, because I just want to make sure that
Mhm.
they can get as much info as possible. What are some ways that folks who get to see this and might not know anything about Cancer Hope Network, what are some of the ways that they could help? I know personally from my experience, obviously, us talking recently about a friend who had a diagnosis, and we hadn't talked in a few months, and you were like on point. It was like not a minute had passed. And honestly, like that's one of the things I absolutely love about you, is the fact that like no matter what, you are there for people. And we might not have talked for 5, 6 months, whatever it was, and you were like, how can I help? How can I help? So for those that might not know anything about Cancer Hope Network, how can they help? Like, what do you guys need help with right now?
So, all of the things. So Cancer Hope Network, we're a national organization. So, like I said, we're a one-on-one peer mentorship program. We are always looking for people who are interested in getting involved as mentors. So people who are at least 1 year post-treatment, or for metastatic patients, are, successfully on maintenance therapies, or people who have cared for a loved one who's gone through cancer. We have a pretty extensive process for becoming a mentor, in terms of just like an intake process and training that we offer. And then, we work with you around, your schedule and what it is that you are able to do, comfortable doing in terms of giving back as a mentor. So we're always seeking mentors, particularly mentors who have had experience with some of the rarer cancer diagnoses. We are a nonprofit organization, so we're always looking for support, financial support. We're looking for connections with companies that have the resources to provide support to our organization in terms of sponsorships for our events, or grants through their foundations. So that that's another piece of how people can get involved and help us. You can leverage your social media pages, birthday fundraisers, that sort of thing, is a wonderful way to contribute to the organization, and leverage your personal networks to provide support to a really meaningful cause. Um, and then, just making sure that anybody and everybody who is impacted by cancer, and, whether that is somebody who's going through the experience themselves, or somebody who's taking care of a loved one. And when I say a caregiver, it doesn't necessarily mean, the person who is living in the home, driving that person to and from treatment, helping to administer medications and all of that. A caregiver is anyone who cares for somebody who is going through a cancer experience. So it could be your coworker, could be your best friend, it could be your parent who lives on the other side of the country, and you're trying to navigate, what does it look like for me to care for somebody who's going through cancer from across the country? How can I be there for them in a way that's meaningful? So, making sure that people are aware that our service is here. Our website is cancerhopenetwork.org. Right on our homepage, there are buttons to, get help or to give help. as well as buttons to donate and support the organization in various ways.
And Beth, you have my word that when this goes out, we will make sure we add all those so people can see it. As I told you, Beth came in very much not like me, wanting to be uber prepared. I hope this was the easiest thing in your day.
It was.
I want to say, as we wrap this up, this homage is yours. I am eternally thankful that we got to meet, that we are able to have a friendship. Please, beyond anything, please make sure you keep your passion and energy on what you are doing and how you do it, because from when I first got to meet you to the amount of time and energy that you've put into the organization to where it is today, you are doing an exceptional job. And like I said, I'm sure there are some days where you're uber busy and uber crazy, and it's like, oh my gosh, there's so much going on. But you, similar to what you're doing and what you get to see on a daily basis with folks with cancer, the imprint that you're leaving on this organization is absolutely remarkable. And I want you to know that so you can keep on doing what you're doing it and doing it to the level that you're doing it at, because it's remarkable to someone from the outside. I know it's serving on different nonprofits and being involved in it, not to the level that you are, but I know how much work goes into it. And I know how much, sometimes to the detriment of the people that are mired in the details of it, how much it means. So kudos to you. Keep doing what you're doing. You are a remarkable woman, and the amount of time and energy that you put into this organization is outstanding. And this homage is yours. So the last minute is all yours to close it out. Thank you for being on the show. Thank you for being a friend. Episode 43 is in the books. Beth, that should have been the easiest thing you did all day.
It was. And I appreciate this immensely, Darren, but I have to say, like, for all of the compliments that you've given and the, you know, the homage that you have paid, I give so much of the credit, and I want to make sure that I take a moment to just share my gratitude with my team, because I have the most extraordinary team of people that I get the pleasure to work with every single day. Our programs team, the people that are actually the front lines, who are answering the phone, who are making the connections between the support seekers and our mentors. They are the superheroes of the organization, and they are everything. So I'm just extraordinarily grateful for that. And to our board of trustees, the Cancer Hope Network Board of Trustees are some of the most incredible humans that you will ever meet. Their passion for our organization, their support of our mission, and just their steadfast, unwavering commitment to Cancer Hope Network it's incredible. I've worked with and for a lot of nonprofit organizations and some really incredible boards, but no board holds a candle to the Cancer Hope Network board. It is just extraordinary. And I feel very fortunate and very blessed that every Sunday night when I go to bed, I don't dread Monday. I look forward to Monday every Sunday night, because I know that I am so, so fortunate to be surrounded by such incredible people, and, so many people doing great work. So thank you for recognizing me, but I want to make sure that I'm recognizing the people that make the magic actually happen.
Spoken like a true leader. Spoken like a true leader. Congratulations on all the achievements that have yet to come for this organization. I know you have your hands in a lot of different things right now that you're trying to bring to fruition. Wishing you nothing but the best. Thankful for you and for our friendship, and just keep rocking it. You're doing an amazing job.
Thank you, Darren. Likewise.
Homage 43 is in the books. Beth Blakey, thank you so much for being here. And we'll have this up online in a week or so. And just continue to do all the amazing work you do.
Thank you. I appreciate it.